Welcome, gentle friend, to this quiet moment we share. I'm grateful that you are here. Tonight, we walk together into teachings that have traveled through centuries, carrying a simple truth about freedom of. You are not here to force silence, nor to wrestle with thought. Instead, you are invited to understand what the Zen sages discovered long ago, that peace is revealed through insight, not effort. If you wish, you may softly notice the hour, the place where you rest, the stillness surrounding you. There is nowhere else you need to be. In this time, I will offer stories chosen with care, stories that gently open one of Buddhism's most transformative understandings. An empty mind is not a blank mind. It is the most natural state of awareness, open, relaxed, and alive. Each story holds a quiet key, a key that softens the habit of mental racing, releases the weight of inner pressure, and eases the tiring urge to control what arises within. These are not simple tales meant only to relax the body. They are reflections preserved from teachers who looked deeply into the nature of mind and found something profound. That the stillness we long for does not come from stopping thought, but from recognizing the vast openness in which all thoughts appear and fade. As we move through these teachings together, you may notice a gentle shift. The familiar noise of thinking may begin to settle on its own. The effort to manage your inner world may quietly loosen, and a deep rest may emerge. The rest that comes when we stop opposing the mind and begin to understand it. So allow yourself to settle now. Let your body be fully supported. Take one slow, conscious breath with me. And as you release it, open yourself to wisdom that has been waiting patiently across generations. Let us begin with a story about the ease of true emptiness. In a quiet fishing village beside a winding river, a Zen master sat beneath the shelter of an old willow tree. Morning light filtered through its leaves, painting soft patterns on the ground. Nearby, fishermen cast their nets into clear water, and the gentle rhythm of small waves touching the shore seemed to slow the passing of time. A fisherman, worn by effort and concern, approached the master and bowed. "Teacher," he said softly, "my mind troubles me like a living thing. The more I try to grasp my thoughts and make them still, the more they slip away. I work day and night to empty my restless mind, yet with every attempt, agitation grows. Please show me the way to true emptiness." The master listened with kind attention. Then his gaze fell upon a hollow gourd drifting easily on the river's surface. With a small gesture, he pointed to it and asked, "Tell me, my friend, what effort does this gourd make to be empty? What struggle does it endure to hold only space?" The fisherman watched the gourd float freely with the current. After a long pause, he replied, "It makes no effort at all. It is simply empty." The master smiled gently. "The gourd does not try to become hollow," he said. "It already is. So tell me, why do you struggle to become what you already are?" In that moment, something softened within the fisherman. He saw that the effort to force emptiness was itself the source of his disturbance. And as this understanding arose, the restless seeking grew quiet, revealing the open spaciousness that had always been there. The Buddha once taught that we are already whole, even as we continue to grow. This is the quiet paradox at the heart of practice. We exhaust ourselves striving for a state that is our original nature, just as the gourd does not struggle to be hollow. Zen reminds us how deeply we are conditioned to do rather than to be. Effort serves us well in the outer world, but when applied inwardly, It often creates the very tension we wish to release. A mind trying to empty itself is like digging to find space. Each movement creates more disturbance. Each thought about stopping thought adds another layer of thinking. You may recognize this in meditation. You sit with the wish to be calm, then notice activity in the mind. That noticing becomes commentary. I should be quieter. Why is this difficult? Each attempt to smooth the surface creates new ripples. A Zen teacher once said, "The ordinary mind is the way." Awakening is not achieved through force. It is recognized. Thoughts, like fish in water, move freely when left alone. When we stop chasing them, we see that they rise and fall naturally within awareness, like waves forming and dissolving in the sea. Emptiness does not mean withdrawal from life. The gourd is empty, yet it floats and carries as needed. In the same way, spacious awareness allows us to respond fully, without resistance. Thoughts, emotions, sensations, all pass through consciousness like clouds across the sky. The sky does not push them away. It simply provides space. Tonight, when you notice the urge to adjust or improve your inner state, remember the drifting gourd. Can you rest as the awareness that is already present? Can you allow thoughts to come and go without effort? The Buddha taught that unexamined thoughts can cause suffering, yet when understood, they become allies. This understanding is not control. It is recognition of emptiness itself. And now, we turn gently to another story, a teaching about expression beyond words. At a village festival glowing with lantern light and the soft scent of incense, a Zen master walked among the celebration. The steady rhythm of drums drew his attention. Following the sound, he found a drummer whose playing had gathered a silent crowd, all held in quiet wonder. The drummer moved with ease, his body flowing with the rhythm, his face peaceful and absorbed. Few knew that he had never spoken a word in his life. A student asked the master, "How can someone without speech create music that speaks so deeply?" The master observed quietly. Later, he asked the drummer, through gentle signs, why his music touched others so fully. The man smiled. He touched his throat, then his head, clearing it with a sweeping motion. Then he moved his hands as if playing a drum that made no sound, yet the rhythm was unmistakable. He cannot fill his mind with endless words, the master explained. So his being speaks. There is no drummer, only drumming. Silence, the Buddha taught, is not empty. It speaks most clearly. And as you rest now, breathing slowly, you may sense that same quiet language within yourself, already present, already enough, carrying you gently towards sleep. Notice how often you are both acting and quietly narrating the action within. Is this the right way to say it? How do I appear? Will this be understood? Is this enough? These inner murmurs form a thin veil, placing distance between you and direct experience itself. A Zen teacher once spoke of beginner's mind, meeting each moment with openness, free from expectations about how it should unfold. The drummer expresses this naturally. Each beat rises fresh from silence, untouched by ideas of what came before or concerns about what may follow. There is no rehearsal, no judgment, only presence. This reveals a deep teaching about emptiness and fullness. Because the drummer's mind is quiet, rhythm fills the space. Because words are absent, expression becomes complete. In Zen aesthetics, silence does not remove meaning. It allows meaning to breathe. We see this everywhere. the unpainted space that gives life to the brush, the pause in conversation that invites understanding, the stillness between musical notes that creates harmony. In a world overflowing with sound and information, we often believe communication means more words, more explanation, more effort. Yet Zen points to Ma, the meaningful pause, the fertile emptiness from which truth naturally arises. This does not mean withdrawing from speech or action. It means discovering moments of inner quiet where deeper knowing can surface. When the mind stops filling every instant with noise, intuition awakens. Creativity flows. Responses arise without force. Tonight, as you speak, listen, or create, perhaps you can gently experiment. Can you allow a breath of silence before responding? Can words emerge from stillness instead of urgency? You may find that what feels most real comes not from thinking what to say, but from the quiet place where thinking rests. The Buddha once taught that a single peaceful word outweighs countless empty ones. The drummer's silent rhythm reminds us that the deepest communication often rises from profound stillness. And now, let us turn to a story about wisdom hidden within repetition. In a secluded mountain monastery, where morning mist clung to ancient pines, lived a monk whose only task was sweeping the stone courtyard. For 3 decades, visitors observed the same gentle ritual. Each dawn, he swept every stone and corner with equal care. His movements were slow and unhurried. The wooden broom whispered softly across the ground. Whether leaves fell in autumn or petals drifted in spring, his attention never wavered, as if meeting the task anew each day. One morning, a learned scholar arrived, proud of his studies and vast understanding of sacred texts. Watching the old monk sweep, he smiled with quiet superiority. "After all these years," he said, "surely you know where the dirt settles. Why sweep what is already clean? What have you gained from repeating the same task?" The monk paused, resting gently on his broom. His face was calm, his eyes deep with lived understanding. "My friend," he replied softly, "after many years, I have found no dirt, no broom, and no one sweeping. Yet somehow, the courtyard remains clear." Without emphasis, without defense, he resumed his work. The scholar noticed the stones shone with quiet radiance, each leaf perfectly placed, reflecting decades of care. The Buddha once observed that stillness reveals the mind, while work refines it. This story teaches that emptiness is not found by avoiding action, but by entering it so fully that the sense of a separate doer dissolves. Why do we resist repetition? Modern life praises novelty, progress, and visible achievement. Routine is dismissed as dull, something to escape. Yet within repetition lies transformation. The scholar represents the mind that asks, "What's next? How can this be improved? When will this be finished?" This mindset overlooks the depth available in now. Zen teaches that awakening is not elsewhere. It is found by meeting ordinary actions completely. The sweeping monk embodies beginner's mind, not mechanical habit, but fresh attention. When washing dishes, traveling, or tidying, where is your awareness? So often the body is present while the mind is elsewhere. But when attention fully arrives, something shifts. The boundary between action and actor softens. There is only movement, only awareness. This is not theory. It is a living experience, available anytime. A Zen master once said, "When walking, just walk. When sitting, just sit." Awakening is ordinary. The courtyard becomes sacred through presence. The monk's learning was not accumulation, but release. Over years, sweeping swept away the sweeper. Notice, the courtyard remains immaculate. Effort has relaxed, yet precision remains. Action becomes effortless and effective. In Zen monasteries, work is meditation. Sweeping, cooking, tending gardens. Each moment dissolves the boundary between practice and life. The broom becomes a cushion. Each stroke, a breath of presence. Tonight, as you perform a simple task, brushing teeth, preparing food, settling your space, can you try complete attention? Can you allow the mind to arrive fully? You may discover that when presence is total, the one who questions disappears, leaving only the quiet beauty of doing. The Buddha taught that one candle can light countless others without losing its flame. The monk's years of sweeping are such candles, each moment illuminating ordinary life. And now, we turn toward a final story, a lesson taught by silence itself. High among mist-covered mountains, a restless student climbed steep paths to find a hermit master. Driven by longing for insight, he carried books, questions, and expectation. After days of travel, he found the master seated before a bare rock wall, perfectly still, as if part of the mountain. The student bowed and spoke eagerly, asking for teachings on emptiness. The master did not turn. Hours passed. Mist lifted. Silence remained. Frustration arose. Finally, the student cried out, "Why haven't you taught me?" Without moving, the master replied softly, "This rock has been teaching you all morning. Why have you not listened?" When the student protested that rocks cannot speak, the master said, "When you hear what it says, you will know what an empty mind sounds like." And in that stillness, the teaching continued. If you wish to understand the mind of the world, listen to silence. This story reveals a quiet truth, that the deepest wisdom does not always arrive through words or explanations, but through direct meeting with stillness itself. Why is it so difficult for us to learn from silence, when it offers the most immediate teaching of all? From early on, we are trained to believe that learning means receiving information, concepts, instructions, answers. We expect teachers to fill our minds with knowledge, techniques, and guidance. Yet Zen points toward a different kind of knowing, one that arises not through accumulation, but through direct experience. The student's restless journey reflects our familiar approach to inner growth. We travel far, both outwardly and inwardly, searching for someone or something to give us what we believe is missing. We gather teachings, attend retreats, read endlessly, hoping the next insight will finally complete us. But this constant seeking often blinds us to what is already here. The stone wall represents what Zen calls original nature, the simple awareness that exists before thought, before striving, before dissatisfaction. It does not attempt to be wise. It does not aim for awakening. It makes no effort to improve itself. It simply exists fully and effortlessly. This effortless being is exactly what the student came to learn. Yet he cannot recognize it because it does not fit the shape of his expectations. A Zen master once taught, "You are already complete. Stop doubting." The stone expresses this perfectly. It never wonders whether it is enlightened enough. It has never been anything other than itself. Zen practice points us back to this natural state, before the mind complicates experience with longing and resistance. Notice how often you seek teachings or special experiences to fix your mind or reach elevated states. Notice the assumption that wisdom must come from outside, through rare methods or extraordinary moments. The silent wall suggests otherwise. What you seek is the awareness present right now, quietly reading these words. The student's inability to hear the wall reveals how the thinking mind filters reality. We divide experience into spiritual and ordinary, meaningful and insignificant. But the wall offers the most fundamental lesson of all: how to be present without agenda, without needing to be elsewhere or become something more. In Zen monasteries, practitioners often sit facing blank walls for long hours, sometimes for years. This practice, called just sitting, is not about reaching a special state. It is about resting as awareness itself. The wall becomes a mirror, reflecting the restless urge to seek, until the peace beneath seeking is revealed. A Zen teacher once said that to study the path is to study oneself, and to study oneself is to forget oneself. The stone teaches this not with explanations, but through its own way of being, free from self-consciousness or ambition. Tonight, as thoughts arise about tomorrow or unfinished concerns, can you remember the silent wall? Can you allow a moment of simply being, without fixing, improving, or understanding anything? You may discover that the peace you long for is not hidden in complexity, but waiting in the simple recognition of awareness itself. The Buddha taught that peace arises from within, not from searching outward. The stone gently guides us home, not to something new, but to what has always been here, beneath the mind's movement. Now, let us continue with a story about expressing what cannot be grasped. In a quiet monastery garden, where morning light filtered through slender bamboo leaves, a master painter sat with brush in hand. Years of practice had softened his movements. Each stroke flowed from stillness and returned to it. A young artist, having heard of the master's remarkable work, arrived from the busy city. He carried his own brushes, his studies, his techniques, yet felt something missing in his art. "Teacher," he said respectfully, watching the brush move across rice paper, "your paintings seem alive, yet they hold nothing solid. What technique allows such depth?" The master continued painting, breathing with each stroke. The bamboo forming on the paper appeared to sway as if touched by unseen wind. "I paint only what is not there," he said quietly. The student leaned closer, confused. "But I see bamboo, the stalks, the leaves. How can you say you paint what is absent?" The master lifted the painting toward the light. The bamboo was complete, yet the empty spaces seemed to move, alive with presence. The unpainted areas were not background, they were the heart of the work. "Most painters," the master explained gently, "try to fill emptiness with form. I use form to reveal emptiness. The bamboo is only a doorway. The true subject is the space between the strokes." He handed the brush to the student. "Do not paint the bamboo," he said softly. "Let the bamboo paint the nothing. Allow emptiness to guide your hand." The student felt a quiet shift. He saw that he had approached art, and perhaps life, from the opposite direction. The Buddha taught that form and emptiness are not separate. True creation arises not by adding more, but by uncovering what is already present. Why do we try so hard to fill emptiness? We are taught that value comes from accumulation. More detail, more achievement, more possession. Yet true mastery often lies in knowing what to leave untouched. The young artist represents our common way of living, focusing on structure and content while overlooking the space that gives them meaning. In music, silence creates rhythm. In architecture, empty space creates shelter. In relationships, shared quiet creates closeness. This wisdom extends beyond art. When solving problems, do we always add more thinking? Or can clarity arise when we simplify and allow space? Zen artists speak of one mind, one brush, one stroke, not careless action, but action arising from empty awareness. When the ego steps aside, creativity flows naturally. To let bamboo paint the nothing means becoming a clear channel rather than a controller. It requires trust in perception, in awareness, in what moves through silence. A Zen teacher once said that wisdom comes from releasing thought, not rejecting sight. When we drop mental ideas, direct experience reveals itself. This applies to every part of life. In conversation, can you hear the silence where understanding lives? In decisions, can you feel the space where insight arises? In love, can you honor the emptiness that allows connection to flow? Japanese aesthetics call this meaningful space. The pause in poetry, the empty corner in a room, the single flower that speaks more than abundance. Tonight, as you create, cooking, writing, arranging your space, or simply speaking, can you focus less on what you add and more on the space you allow? You may find that your truest expression emerges not from filling emptiness, but from allowing emptiness to gently fill you. The Buddha taught that what matters most is how we live, how we love, and how we let go. The master painter shows that letting go of excess opens the door to beauty beyond effort. And now, we turn to a story about wisdom hidden within unexpected moments. On the quiet grounds of a mountain monastery, morning mist clung to ancient pines as bells marked the slow rhythm of daily life. A laborer went about his routine work beneath the raised wooden halls. As he swept in the shadows below the meditation hall, something caught his eye. Fresh fish bones lay scattered on the ground, still faintly shining from a recent meal. His heart quickened at the sight. Fish was strictly forbidden within the monastery walls. The monastic code spoke clearly of abstaining from flesh, and these small white bones signaled a serious breach of the community's most essential vows. Such a discovery felt scandalous, deserving the immediate attention of the highest authority. Holding the evidence tightly in his roughened hands, the laborer crossed the temple grounds in haste, his steps quick with urgency. "Master, master," he called, his voice trembling with a mix of excitement and righteous concern. "See what I discovered beneath the monk's hall. Fresh fish bones. How shameful for such proof of broken vows to appear here. What will others think of our discipline?" The master, who had been quietly preparing his morning tea, lifted his gaze. His eyes showed no shock, no surprise, no trace of disappointment. Instead, a soft smile settled on his aged face as he gently examined the bones offered with such certainty. "Well, well," the master murmured, turning them thoughtfully in his palm, a light chuckle escaping him. "The novices these days have grown rather careless. When I was young, we never left even the bones behind." The laborer stood motionless, his mouth open in disbelief. Had the master truly admitted not only awareness, but also past participation so complete that no trace remained? In that instant, the moral conviction that had fueled his accusation dissolved. The Buddha taught, "The faults of others are easily seen, while one's own are difficult to perceive. This teaching reaches deeply into the human heart. How often we become fixated on the perceived failures of others, while remaining blind to our own limits and to the unseen complexity of circumstances. Ancient wisdom reveals how swiftly we are intoxicated by feelings of moral superiority. The laborer's eagerness to expose wrongdoing uncovers a tender yet troubling tendency. We are often quick to search for flaws in those we view as holding higher standards or greater spiritual authority. Why does discovering the imperfections of those we admire bring such secret satisfaction? Zen describes this as the comparative mind, the ego's attempt to feel worthy by diminishing others. When we uncover their humanity, their mistakes, their moments of weakness, we feel briefly elevated, as if their fall somehow confirms our own virtue. The worker judged swiftly, relying on appearances alone. He never paused to consider the wider story behind what he found. Perhaps the fish had been donated and would have gone to waste. Perhaps it was medicine offered to a sick monk. Perhaps it reflected compassion rather than indulgence. To believe one understands the full moral truth from a single fragment reveals the danger of self-righteous simplicity. We see this pattern daily. A coworker leaves early and we label them lazy, never imagining family needs. A friend grows quiet and we assume indifference, unaware of private burdens. A teacher stumbles and we call them false, forgetting the weight of human complexity. A Zen master once said, "The foolish reject what they see. The wise reject what they think." This invites us to question our judgments rather than trusting them blindly. The master's response reveals a deeper lesson about authority and humility. He did not deny, defend, or punish. Instead, he transformed accusation into insight about rules, practice, and shared humanity. His quiet humor acknowledges imperfection while hinting that true growth may arise beyond rigid control. Rules exist to support awakening, but when they become tools for comparison and judgment, they can obstruct the very freedom they were meant to cultivate. Even evidence itself is uncertain. The worker believed bones proved failure, yet they may have reflected compassion, flexibility, or wisdom beyond appearances. Tonight, as you notice the urge to judge based on fragments and surfaces, can you pause? Can you recall moments when your own actions might have seemed questionable to someone who lacked the full story? The Buddha taught, hatred is never ended by hatred. Only by non-hatred is hatred ended. This truth is timeless. Meeting apparent imperfections with understanding softens the heart and clears the path forward. As we continue through the gentle wisdom of Zen, we now turn toward a story of contentment and desire, the journey of the stone cutter. High among mountain villages lived a simple stone cutter who unknowingly held the secret of happiness. Each dawn he walked winding paths to the quarries, tools resting easily on his shoulder. As he worked, he sang old mountain songs that drifted across the valleys. By worldly measures he was poor, living in a small hut with few possessions. Yet he wanted nothing beyond what he had. The rhythm of work, the vast mountains, the honesty of labor. His life felt whole. One day he was summoned to carve stone for the mansion of a wealthy nobleman. As he approached the estate, his breath caught. Marble columns rose skyward. Gardens spread in perfect order. For the first time, desire pierced his calm. "If only I were rich," he sighed. "Then I would not labor in sweat as I do." To his astonishment, a voice whispered from the stones, "Your wish is granted." That evening, his humble hut had become a grand mansion. He abandoned his tools and embraced luxury. Yet one scorching afternoon, he gazed from an ornate window and saw the king pass below, cool and composed beneath shaded canopies. "I wish I were king," he thought, and instantly reclined upon silken cushions in a royal carriage. But even there, heat pressed in. "I wish I were the sun," he declared, and became radiant and powerful. Yet clouds soon gathered, blocking his light. "I wish to be a cloud," and he transformed again, only to find rain halted by a great rock. "I wish to be a rock," he cried, standing immense and unyielding. Soon he heard chiseling below. A small human figure chipped away at his base. "I wish to be a man again." And so he returned to his former life, walking familiar paths, shaping stone. But now his heart overflowed with quiet joy. His song returned, deeper and richer. The Buddha said, "Contentment is the greatest wealth. Desire endlessly promises happiness elsewhere, yet fulfillment lives only here." The stone-cutter's journey reveals the futility of chasing satisfaction through change. Each wish fulfilled uncovered another longing. Zen teaches that you are already whole. True transformation is not becoming something else, but recognizing what you have always been. Tonight, as the mind reaches for what is absent, can you rest in what is present? Can you hear the song that arises when striving softens? Contentment is natural wealth, the Buddha taught. Luxury, by contrast, is often subtle poverty. The deepest change is gentle recognition. And now we continue with a story about the limits of knowing, the teaching of the Emperor and Master Gudo. The Emperor of Japan, accustomed to clear answers, invited the revered Master Gudo for a private audience. He carried sincere questions about life, death, and what lies beyond understanding. Seated in the formal chamber, the Emperor asked with confidence, "What becomes of an enlightened person after death?" He expected profound explanations of rebirth or cosmic unity. Instead, Gudo answered calmly, "How should I know?" The Emperor was startled. "But you are enlightened," he insisted. "Yes," Gudo replied gently, "but I am not dead." Within this simple exchange rests deep wisdom. True understanding includes honesty about what cannot be known. The Buddha said, "I know only that I do not know." Wisdom does not pretend. Zen reminds us to distinguish thought from experience, and to rest peacefully within that mystery. Master Gudo's reply was not a lack of insight, but its living expression. He chose not to speculate about experiences he had never entered, even when questioned by someone of immense power. In that quiet refusal, his sincerity revealed deeper wisdom than any ornate explanation of life after death ever could. Reflect on how often, in ordinary moments, we act as though we know what we truly do not. We speak with confidence about complicated social matters, offer firm guidance on relationships we barely understand, or predict outcomes that no one can foresee. So often, we feel compelled to appear certain, fearing that admitting uncertainty might diminish us. The Emperor's belief that awakening must include answers about death reflects a common misunderstanding of spiritual growth. We imagine enlightenment as a storehouse of cosmic facts, rather than a transformation in how we meet the unknown. In Zen practice, there is cultivation of what Suzuki Roshi called beginner's mind, or don't know mind. This is an open, receptive awareness that does not rush to fill silence with ideas. It is not confusion, but a mature recognition that lived experience carries more truth than borrowed concepts. Zen teacher Linji reminded his students that there is nothing special to gain, nothing extraordinary to collect. Awakening does not bestow mystical knowledge about what lies beyond direct experience. One who is alive understands living. What follows death remains mystery until death itself is met. The Buddha taught not to believe something simply because it is spoken, but to examine whether it leads to kindness, benefit, and freedom for all beings. In this way, direct seeing is valued above authority. Godo's answer points to the relief that comes from releasing the need to hold opinions about everything. How much energy is spent building explanations for what cannot be known? How much unease arises from worrying about imagined futures? Look gently into your own heart. Where do you cling to certainty to avoid the discomfort of not knowing? What might soften if you could say, "I don't know," with the same calm dignity as Master Godo? The emperor sought answers about death from someone fully alive. Yet true understanding may not come from collecting knowledge about what lies ahead, but from inhabiting this moment completely. The mystery of death is honored not by solving it, but by living sincerely in its presence. Tonight, as questions about the future, about others' intentions, or about the universe arise, can you remember Godo's simple honesty? Can you rest in not knowing, and discover that this openness may be wiser than all clever conclusions? The Buddha reminded us that genuine wisdom begins with recognizing the limits of what we know. In a world crowded with false certainty, the Master's gentle question, "How should I know?" invites a more honest relationship with mystery, one that respects the unknown while embracing what can be directly felt and lived. As our journey through Zen wisdom continues, we arrive at a teaching about the freedom found in releasing identity itself. This is the story of a seeker's final realization. For countless years, a devoted monk wandered distant lands, searching for the legendary realm where the Buddha was said to dwell. His entire adult life was shaped by this quest, carrying him through burning deserts, over perilous mountain paths, and across vast, empty plains seldom crossed by others. Each step was fueled by the belief that somewhere beyond the familiar world existed a place where suffering ended and truth could be fully known. His path demanded great sacrifice. He surrendered the comfort of home, the safety of community, and the quiet joys of ordinary living. His body bore the signs of devotion, feet hardened by endless travel, skin etched by sun and wind, a slender frame shaped by long periods without sufficient food. Still, his resolve never faltered. In his mind, every hardship brought him closer to the goal. Each monastery became a marker along the way. Every teacher offered hints that might lead him nearer to the sacred land. At last, after decades of wandering, he heard certain news. Travelers spoke of a vast river marking the edge of Buddha's realm. Beyond its flowing waters lay the land he had sought for so long. When he arrived at the riverbank, his heart trembled with awe. The water stretched wide and deep, separating him from the fulfillment of all his striving. This was the final threshold. With prayers forming softly within him, he entered the river and began to swim toward the far shore. Halfway across, something drifting in the current caught his eye. As it neared, he saw with growing dread that it was a human body, swollen and pale from days in the water. Then recognition struck like sudden thunder. The lifeless face was his own. The same features he had glimpsed in still pools. The same hands that had counted prayer beads in endless meditation. the same body that had carried him across the world. Fear and confusion surged through him. How could he be alive and dead at once? What strange vision had arisen at the very edge of enlightenment? As the body floated past, carrying with it every story he had told about who he was and where he was going, something deep within him loosened. His identity as a seeker, a monk, a traveler dissolved into the river's flow. Everything he believed himself to be drifted away. In that moment of complete unknowing, when all familiar reference points vanished, a quiet freedom appeared. The one who sought awakening was gone, yet awareness itself remained, open, vast, untouched. This story reveals the paradox at the heart of the path. The self that seeks must fall away for awakening to arise. Buddhist understanding teaches that the belief in a separate self is the root of suffering. As long as we cling to being someone who is becoming something, we remain bound within illusion. The monk's encounter with his own corpse symbolizes every seeker's meeting with the end of who they thought they were. This ending is not failure, but the doorway to recognition of what has always been present beneath our ideas. The journey cannot be completed by the one who began it, because completion requires the journeyer to dissolve. The river marks the crossing from ordinary perception into awakened seeing. Once crossed, there is no return to the old understanding. Standing at the threshold of Buddha's land, the monk discovers that awakening does not strengthen the ego, but gently washes it away. Suzuki Roshi once said that you are complete just as you are, and still capable of gentle refinement. The monk was never separate from Buddha nature. It was already seeking itself through him. Yet his attachment to being a seeker obscured this simple truth. Only by witnessing the ending of the seeker could reality reveal itself as what had always been present. This falling away does not mean losing awareness or the ability to function in the world. Instead, it uncovers what remains when the stories we tell about ourselves dissolve. Beneath the voice narrating our personal drama lies awareness itself, unconditioned, unborn, and unafraid of any experience, even the experience that appears as death. This teaching gestures toward what seasoned practitioners call dying before dying, consciously loosening our grip on identity while still alive, so that physical death, when it arrives, feels less like annihilation and more like changing garments. This is not a morbid fixation, but a compassionate preparation for the letting go that awaits all beings. The monk's fear, followed by release, mirrors the inner passage many experience as ego softens. At first there is terror, then an unexpected lightness, as we realize that what we feared losing was a weight we never needed to carry. The self we have guarded so carefully turns out to be a misunderstanding. Zen Master Huangbo taught that nothing is gained through addition, and nothing essential is lost through subtraction. The monk's vision embodied this truth. Watching his body drift away did not add anything new, nor did it remove what mattered. What remained was what had existed even before his journey began. Tonight, as you gently notice the identities and roles you hold, can you imagine them floating away like that body on the river? You may discover that what you fear losing was never your true nature, and that what you truly are cannot be threatened by change. The Buddha reminded us that in the end, only three things matter: how deeply we have lived, how sincerely we have loved, and how gracefully we have learned to release. Sometimes releasing includes loosening our grip on the very self that wants to awaken. The next story reveals the difference between performing spirituality and embodying it. This is the teaching of the head that wished to be severed. In the great monastery of Zhao, where hundreds of monks gathered for meditation and study, the days unfolded according to ancient rhythms. After the early sitting, as dawn brushed the surrounding peaks with light, monks dispersed to their tasks. Some tended gardens, others prepared meals, copied texts, or repaired buildings. One morning, the venerable abbot Zhaozhou made his usual walk through the grounds, quietly observing both the practice of his students and the life of the monastery. His presence was gentle yet piercing. No one ever knew when an ordinary exchange might become a profound lesson. Passing behind the main meditation hall, he noticed a young monk sitting alone in the building's shadow, absorbed in what seemed to be private practice. "Brother," Zhaozhou asked softly, his steps silent from years of mindful walking, "where have all the virtuous ones gone?" The question sounded casual, but those familiar with his ways sensed its depth. Was he asking about location, realization, or something beyond words? The young monk looked up with confidence. Having studied for years, he believed he understood Zen's essentials. This felt like a chance to demonstrate insight. "They have all gone to work," he replied plainly, gesturing toward the monastery where others were busy. His tone suggested the answer was self-evident. Virtue meant activity, not idleness. What followed shattered his certainty. Without warning, Zhaozhou drew a knife from his robe, its blade catching the morning light. Calmly, he bared his own neck and handed the knife to the stunned monk. His voice remained gentle, almost practical. "My duties as abbot are many," he said. "Please cut off my head. It would greatly help." The monk froze in terror, hands shaking as he stared at the blade and his teacher's exposed throat. Unable to grasp any meaning beyond the literal, overwhelmed by fear, he dropped the knife and fled. Zhaozhou quietly retrieved it, returned it to his robe, and continued his walk, his peace unbroken. As the Buddha observed, it is better to travel well than to arrive. This story points to the vast gap between understanding ideas and realizing truth. How easily we mistake knowledge about the path for walking it. The mind loves to collect spiritual concepts, arranging them neatly while avoiding transformation. The young monk's answer revealed a split between practice and daily life, assuming virtue lay in visible activity. Zhaozhou's gesture cut deeper. If all the virtuous ones were working, what work mattered most? If compassion was central, what response truly eased suffering? Look into your own assumptions. How often do you divide life into sacred and ordinary, practice and chores? This separation blinds us to the fact that every moment invites awakened response. Zhaozhou's action pointed to the heart of Zen. Compassion sometimes requires going beyond convention. When burdened by roles, identities, or even spiritual striving, what is the most loving act? At times it means cutting through the very concepts we cherish. Zen Master Linji said, "If you meet the Buddha, kill the Buddha," reminding us that clinging to ideas of enlightenment blocks direct seeing. The monk's flight showed his attachment to surface meaning. His understanding remained conceptual. Reflect on how you respond when others seek help. Do you offer explanations, or do you meet them from presence? Are you willing to release comfortable spiritual roles to respond authentically? Zen practice nurtures great doubt, not cynicism, but openness to insight beyond our frameworks. Are we willing to let even our cherished beliefs dissolve if awakening calls for it? Tonight, as opportunities to care for others arise, can you feel the difference between acting from habit and responding from wisdom? The Buddha taught that caring for others and caring for oneself are not separate. Zhaozhou's offered neck pointed to this non-duality, where self and other dissolve into spontaneous compassion. We now continue with a story about compassionate teaching and the wisdom that can emerge from transgression. This is the tale of the master whose head became a footstool. Near Master Sengai's temple lay a district that glowed at night with lanterns and laughter, drawing visitors toward pleasures far removed from monastic quiet. Despite strict vows, some younger monks were drawn there. The temple wall stood high, meant to preserve separation, yet desire inspires creativity. They left a wooden step by the wall to climb over and return before dawn. Master Sengai knew of their excursions. Rather than scolding or punishing, he responded with gentle insight. One night, knowing when they would return, he removed the footstool and sat in its place, resting in meditation. Before dawn, the monks climbed back, searching with their feet for the familiar step. Finding something solid, they descended. As light grew, they saw what they had stepped upon, their teacher's calm, shaven head. Struck with shame and fear, they fell prostrate, expecting severe consequences for breaking their vows and using their master as a footstool. Yet Master Sengai's response moved in an entirely different direction than they feared. He did not show anger or disappointment. Instead, he spoke with a quiet, sorrowful tenderness, placing the responsibility upon himself. "Your actions," he said softly, "arise from my own shortcomings as a teacher. I have failed to offer you the guidance and depth of practice needed to feel fulfilled here." The Buddha taught, hatred is never ended by hatred, but by love alone. This is an eternal truth. This wisdom illuminates the transforming power of meeting wrongdoing with compassion rather than punishment, and the deep lesson that appears when we take responsibility for our part in the mistakes of others. This story reveals something radical about true teaching and leadership. Rather than using his students' transgression to assert authority or deliver strict reprimands, Master Sengai turned the moment into a living lesson in humility, responsibility, and compassion. Why is it that we so often respond to others' mistakes with blame instead of reflecting on how we may have helped create the conditions for them? This habit reflects a deep conditioning to see problems as external faults needing correction, rather than invitations to deeper understanding and shared growth. We attempt to fix the surface while ignoring the roots beneath. The monks' secret wanderings pointed to a truth about human nature and the limits of rigid control. Their longing for worldly pleasure was not dissolved by walls or rules. It was merely pushed into secrecy, breeding guilt rather than transformation. Master Sengai understood that authentic spiritual teaching must work with human nature, not simply oppose it. By acknowledging his own role, he demonstrated a vital principle. When those under our care act in harmful or confused ways, the first question is not how to punish them, but how we may have contributed to the situation. Here we see the difference between authority rooted in control and authority grounded in wisdom. The master could have reinforced hierarchy, making an example of the monks to deter future disobedience. Instead, he chose to embody the qualities he wished to cultivate: humility, accountability, and compassion. Similar dynamics unfold throughout life. A parent may reflect on whether their absence or stress influenced a child's behavior. A manager may consider whether unclear guidance led to poor performance. A teacher may ask whether their methods truly meet their students' needs. Zen also reveals another layer through the teaching of interdependence. Master Sengai saw that his students' actions did not arise in isolation. They emerged from a shared web of relationships, restrictions, expectations, and unmet longings. By taking responsibility for his place within this web, he opened the door to genuine change. This wisdom also highlights the power of unexpected responses. The monks returned expecting secrecy, only to encounter their teacher's head beneath their feet. This startling reversal created an opening for learning that punishment alone could never produce. Our minds often believe authority must rely on strict enforcement. Sengai's response offers another model, that true authority sometimes appears as vulnerability, honesty, and shared responsibility. What seemed like failure became a moment of profound teaching. The monks learned more about authentic spiritual leadership in that single dawn than years of formal instruction might have conveyed. The story also points to the courage required for genuine leadership. It takes deep inner strength to respond to wrongdoing by examining oneself rather than clinging to righteousness. Sengai's willingness to place his own head beneath their feet, both literally and symbolically, embodied selfless service capable of transforming a community. Tonight, as you reflect on moments when others have disappointed or frustrated you, can you gently ask how you may have shaped the conditions around them? What might it mean to accept responsibility for your part, while still holding wise boundaries? The Buddha taught that the sky itself has no east or west. Divisions are created by the mind. When we soften the separation between teacher and student, leader and follower, we discover that real transformation arises through shared responsibility and compassion, not domination. Now we turn to a Zen story about the irreplaceable nature of direct transmission. This is the tale of Bankei and the messenger. In the lively capital, where merchants bargained in crowded streets and scholars debated over tea, the renowned Zen master Bankei had just completed another period of teaching at a great temple. Known for his clarity and his ability to point directly to Buddha nature, Bankei lived simply, traveling from place to place wherever sincere seekers gathered. As he prepared to leave, carefully tying his few belongings into a bundle, a finely dressed gentleman approached with respectful urgency. His elegant robes and careful bearing suggested someone accustomed to noble circles, perhaps a retainer to a powerful family. "Venerable master," the man said, bowing deeply, "I come with a request from my lord, a baron of learning and sincere devotion to your teaching. He had heard of your insight and longed deeply to meet you in person, yet urgent affairs have detained him today. Would you be willing to delay your journey by a single day so that he may have the honor of learning from you tomorrow?" Bankei, though eager to continue onward to the next temple where devoted students awaited, recognized the sincerity within the request. The way of a true teacher calls for adaptability and compassion, even when it brings inconvenience. "Of course," he answered softly, "I will remain for one more day." The master loosened his traveling bundle and returned to the quiet of the temple quarters, passing the evening in silent meditation and gentle preparation for what he expected would be a meaningful meeting with a sincere seeker. Over many years, he had encountered nobles who approached Zen not with pride, but with humility, despite their worldly rank. He welcomed the opportunity to offer whatever guidance might serve the path of awakening. Morning arrived beneath open skies, accompanied by the deep tones of temple bells calling the community into stillness. Bankei waited calmly in the appointed room as the hour of the meeting drew near. Yet once again, it was not the baron who appeared, but the same finely dressed gentleman, his face now marked by visible discomfort. "Master," the man began, his voice heavy with regret, "I bring unfortunate news. The Baron has been summoned by urgent matters that could not be postponed, affairs of state demanding his immediate presence. Still, he has not forgotten his wish to receive your instruction. He has asked me to stand in his place, to receive your teaching and carry your wisdom back to him faithfully." The gentleman hesitated, hoping this proposal might be accepted. "The Baron's question," he continued, "concerns the nature of mind itself. He seeks to know what consciousness truly is, and how one may realize it directly. If you would share your understanding, I will repeat your words exactly as spoken." Bankai listened quietly, his presence steady and compassionate. When the request ended, he remained silent for a moment, as if considering not only the question, but the entire circumstance, the absent seeker, the devoted messenger, and the deep impossibility hidden within the request itself. At last, Bankai spoke with his familiar simplicity. "The matter of Zen is difficult enough to convey through direct dialogue between teacher and student sitting face to face. To transmit it through a messenger, no matter how earnest or capable, is truly impossible." Having spoken, the master returned to silence, embodying the teaching beyond words. The gentleman waited, perhaps expecting further explanation, yet none followed. Finally, unsettled and unsure, he bowed respectfully and departed the temple in quiet confusion. The Buddha once taught, "Be a lamp unto yourself." This truth is gently revealed in Bankai's refusal to reduce awakening to a message that can be delivered secondhand. Spiritual realization is not information to be passed along, but transformation that must arise within. Why do we so often approach the spiritual path as though it were academic knowledge to be gathered and reported? Zen reminds us that awakening is not an idea to comprehend, but a reality to be directly lived. Like the taste of water to one who is thirsty, it cannot be explained, only experienced. The Baron's question about consciousness reflects our familiar habit. We wish to understand awareness intellectually, to grasp it as a concept, to own it as knowledge. Yet consciousness cannot be studied as an object, for it is the very subject doing the studying. It is like attempting to see your own eyes without a mirror. The seeing itself is what you seek. Notice how often, throughout your day, spiritual wisdom is treated as something to collect rather than something to embody. We read about meditation instead of resting in stillness. We analyze enlightenment instead of examining this moment. We ask what the mind is instead of observing what we call mind directly. Zen Master Dogen taught, to study the Buddha way is to study the self. To study the self is to forget the self. This gentle paradox points to why true transmission requires personal engagement. The self that seeks to understand Buddhism intellectually is the very structure that must be seen through. This seeing does not come from accumulating ideas, but from intimate attention to immediate experience. The messenger in this story mirrors our own tendency to approach awakening indirectly, keeping a safe distance from direct inquiry. We imagine ourselves as observers studying awareness, forgetting that awareness is not something we possess, it is what we are. Bankai's silence was itself a teaching. In Zen, silence often reveals what language cannot. The spaces between thoughts, the pause between breaths, the open awareness in which all experience unfolds. These cannot be captured by words, but can be recognized when grasping relaxes. This does not mean teachers are unnecessary. Rather, authentic teaching points inward, toward direct knowing, not borrowed understanding. A teacher does not hand over enlightenment, but helps create the conditions where students may recognize what has always been present. Tonight, as you rest with the simple fact of being aware of these words, aware of your breath, aware of the quiet space holding all sensation, can you explore this awareness directly without turning it into an idea? Can you simply be present rather than seeking explanation? As the Buddha advised, work out your own liberation with care. The path cannot be walked by proxy. It requires your own steps, your own breath, your own gentle courage to look directly at what you have always been, yet perhaps never fully seen. Now let us enter another Zen story, one that reveals the nature of our emotional patterns. This is the story of anger. In a quiet monastery where cherry blossoms drifted like falling snow along ancient stone paths, a troubled man approached the respected Zen master Bankai. His face carried the weight of long struggle, his shoulders tense with a burden held deep within. "Master," he said, bowing low, "I seek your guidance because I suffer from a terrible condition. I was born with a violent temper that rises without warning. No matter how hard I try to restrain it, this anger surfaces and ruins my relationships, my peace, my happiness. I have tried everything, meditation, prayer, solitude, yet nothing brings relief. Can you help me overcome this curse I was born with?" Bankai listened quietly, not only to the man's words, but to the sincerity beneath them and the longing for freedom from suffering that lived in his voice. The master's gaze rested upon the visitor with quiet understanding, as though he perceived something the man himself could not yet see. "What you describe is most interesting," Bankai replied, his voice soft with sincere curiosity. "This terrible temper you believe you were born with, I would like very much to see it. If you can show it to me now, I will heal it for you at once." The man hesitated, unsettled by the simplicity of the request. He turned his attention inward, searching carefully for the familiar fire of rage. Yet in that moment, seated before the teacher in the stillness of the monastery, he found only calm awareness. "Well, master," he said slowly, "the temper is not here right now. It is absent in this moment. It only appears suddenly, when I am criticized, when I feel frustrated, when events do not unfold as I expect." Bankai nodded gently, a faint smile touching his lips. "I understand," he said. "So this temper you claim was with you from birth is not present right now. It arises only under particular conditions. If it were truly your original nature, would it not be with you always?" The man's eyes widened as realization quietly took hold. If the anger were truly innate, it could never disappear. Yet here he sat, peaceful and untroubled, with no trace of it to be found. Then, Bankai continued softly, "This short temper does not belong to your true nature at all. The Buddha once taught, holding on to anger is like drinking poison and expecting another to suffer. This ancient insight reveals a deep truth: anger, like all emotions, is not a fixed identity, but a passing condition we often mistake for who we are. Why do we so easily convince ourselves that difficult emotions define us? Zen teachings point to familiar patterns. When certain reactions repeat, we begin to cling to them until we say, "I am an angry person," rather than "anger sometimes arises." This identification offers a sense of safety. If we believe our reactions are unchangeable, we avoid both responsibility and freedom. It feels easier to say, "This is just how I am," than to recognize the quiet power of choice in each moment. Notice how often we label ourselves throughout the day. I am not a morning person. I am bad with technology. I am naturally anxious. Each statement strengthens the illusion that our patterns are permanent, rather than habits shaped by conditioning and attention. Zen teacher Suzuki Roshi once said, "You are perfect as you are, and there is room for improvement." This gentle paradox reminds us that our essential nature is already whole, while the layers built through habit can be examined and softened. The man in the story encountered what meditators call the gap, the space between thoughts, the pause before reaction. Within that stillness, he saw clearly that anger was not his identity, but a learned response arising under certain conditions. When we recognize emotions as visitors rather than residents, our relationship with them changes. Instead of saying, "I am angry," we may notice, "Anger is arising." This small shift creates space, allowing emotions to move through without consuming our sense of self. Tonight, as you rest with your own experience, consider the patterns you may have called who you are. Can you find moments when they are absent? Can you sense the steady awareness that remains whether anger, sadness, or joy appears? As the Buddha taught, you are not your thoughts. You are not your emotions. You are the awareness that notices them. In recognizing this truth, a gentle freedom reveals itself, one that has always been present beneath conditioned reactions. Now let us turn to another Zen story, one that speaks of flowing with natural forces and the wisdom of yielding rather than resisting. This is the story of the bamboo in the hut. Master Ryokan lived high in the mountains in a dwelling as simple as his way of life. His small hut, built from humble materials, offered shelter without attachment to permanence or form. It reflected his understanding to take only what is needed and remain open to change. One spring, as warmth returned to the earth and life stirred beneath the forest floor, something unexpected began beneath his hut. Tiny bamboo shoots, following their ancient instinct to grow toward light, pushed up through the soil beneath the floorboards. Most would have seen this as a problem. Bamboo grows quickly and with great strength. Left alone, it would surely break the floor, damaging the structure entirely. The obvious solution would have been to cut it away. But Ryokan saw differently. He did not regard the bamboo as an intrusion, nor as an enemy to his shelter. Instead, he chose to cooperate with what was unfolding. Without delay, he removed sections of the floor so the shoots could rise freely. Weeks passed, and the bamboo responded with vibrant growth. Soon it pressed against the ceiling, reaching toward the roof beams. Again, many would have drawn the line here. Yet once more, Ryokan chose accommodation. He carefully opened the roof, allowing the bamboo to pass through and greet the open sky. The shoots continued upward, swaying gently in the mountain air. In time, Ryokan found himself living in a hut where living bamboo rose from the earth and extended through the roof, a home that was part shelter, part forest. He did not see this as damage, but as enrichment. Untroubled by appearances, Ryokan continued his daily practice. He sat in meditation beneath the living bamboo, feeling its quiet vitality, listening to its soft movement in the wind. Light and shadow shifted throughout the day, marking the passage of time. What began as a potential problem became an intimate lesson in harmony. As the Buddha observed, nothing is permanent except change. This teaching speaks directly to our lives. We build structures, emotional, professional, personal, and then expend great effort defending them. We treat change as disruption rather than invitation. Ryokan's response shows another way. Instead of resisting growth, he allowed it to reshape his dwelling into something more alive than his original design. Why do we resist change even when it may bring improvement? Often it is fear of uncertainty, fear of losing control. We cling to the familiar even when it limits us. Ryokan's willingness to alter his home reveals true flexibility. He did not passively surrender, nor did he fight. He participated creatively, honoring both his needs and the bamboo's nature. Such opportunities appear everywhere. In families disrupted by new needs. In work shaped by shifting conditions. In lives redirected by unforeseen events. Zen practice cultivates adaptive wisdom, the ability to respond creatively to what arises. It asks us to trust that flow often leads to deeper harmony than rigid control. Ryokan meditating beneath living bamboo teaches integration. Practice does not require isolation from life. It can deepen through intimacy with it. The bamboo challenged ideas of order and boundary, yet revealed a richer way of living. When we stop fighting what wants to grow and ask how to work with it, something new becomes possible. Tonight, as you reflect on changes in your own life, where might accommodation serve better than resistance? What floorboards could be lifted to allow growth that nourishes rather than threatens? The Buddha taught that the wise find joy in water, strength in mountains, and insight in forests. By flowing with life instead of opposing it, we discover a peace that force can never achieve. Now, let us continue with a cautionary tale about spiritual pride. This is the story of the clever monkey. In ancient China, the Prince of Wu set out by boat to visit Monkey Mountain, a place famed for its beauty and wildlife. Surrounded by guards and attendants, he arrived with the ease of royalty, expecting the world to yield before him. At the sight of the royal party, the monkeys fled in alarm, scrambling high into the trees. The forest fell silent, save for rustling leaves. Yet one monkey remained unmoved. He leapt and swung with effortless grace, displaying his skill without fear. His confidence bordered on defiance, as though mocking the danger below. The prince watched, irritation growing. Here was a mere creature showing no respect for power, seeming to challenge authority itself with casual indifference. The monkey's fearless display felt like an open challenge to the prince's authority. Determined to humble this insolent creature, the prince lifted his bow and released an arrow straight toward the monkey. Yet to the astonishment of everyone watching, the monkey caught the arrow in midair, snatching it from the sky as effortlessly as one might catch a drifting leaf. He studied it briefly, then tossed it aside with careless ease, as though such a feat required no effort at all. The prince's face darkened with anger. His mastery as an archer had been reduced to mockery by a simple animal. "Attack!" he commanded sharply. "Bring down this arrogant beast." A storm of arrows filled the air. This time, the monkey could not defend himself. Overwhelmed by the force of many hands acting together, he was struck again and again, falling lifeless to the forest floor. His remarkable skill proved useless when faced with collective power. The prince then turned to his wise companion, Yen Pui, who had watched the scene with quiet insight. "Do you see what happened?" the prince said. This creature displayed his cleverness openly. He trusted too much in his own ability. He believed himself untouchable. Remember this lesson. Do not rely on brilliance or distinction when dealing with people. Yen Pui took these words deeply to heart. After returning home, he reflected on how his own talents, reputation, and accomplishments might be feeding the same subtle pride that had led to the monkey's downfall. Quietly, he sought out a humble sage and became his student. He let go of the pleasures and status that once defined him and learned to conceal every quality that made him appear exceptional. Through steady practice, Yen Pui cultivated genuine humility. In time, no one in the kingdom knew how to categorize him. He became so ordinary, so unremarkable on the surface, that people began to sense a quiet depth beneath his simplicity. They respected him not for what he displayed, but for the calm presence he carried. The Buddha spoke of this truth when he said, "Those who know do not speak. Those who speak do not know." This story reveals the danger of turning wisdom or ability into identity. Why do we feel the need to display our insight, our growth, our understanding? Zen teaches that the ego can seize even genuine realization, using it to reinforce separation and superiority. What should dissolve the sense of self can instead strengthen it when we cling to being advanced or awakened. Like the monkey, we may develop real capacities: clarity, compassion, steadiness of mind. Yet when we identify with these qualities, when we use them to distinguish ourselves from others, they become the very cause of our suffering. Here lies a quiet paradox of spiritual growth. The deeper the realization, the less it needs to be seen. True wisdom naturally appears as humility, for it reveals the interwoven nature of all life, leaving no ground for comparison. Zen teacher Shunryu Suzuki spoke of "don't know mind, the heart of beginner's mind." This is not confusion, but the recognition that concepts cannot grasp reality. The monkey's tragedy was mistaking cleverness for specialness, instead of seeing it as a passing expression of universal intelligence. The Buddha taught, "Better than 1,000 hollow words is one word that brings peace." Yen Pui discovered that by becoming nothing special, he gained a deeper influence, one that touched others through presence, not performance. Reflect gently on your own path. Notice moments when insight becomes pride, when meditation experiences or understanding quietly separate you from others. Each time practice becomes identity, we reenact the monkey's fatal display. Tonight, as you rest in simple awareness, can you practice being nobody special? Can you find ease not in showing wisdom, but in resting within the ordinary mystery of being? As the Buddha taught, those free from resentful thoughts naturally dwell in peace. And the deepest peace comes when even the desire to be peaceful is released. Now we turn to a story that reveals the difference between submission and genuine understanding. This is the lesson of the proud priest and the gentle master. Master Bankai had become widely known across the region. Unlike teachers who relied on complex doctrine and long quotations, he spoke simply, from heart to heart. His words reached farmers and scholars alike, pointing directly to the natural peace present within everyone. People from all walks of life gathered to hear him: merchants, servants, warriors, monks. But his growing influence unsettled a priest of the Nichiren sect, whose own temple had grown quiet as followers drifted away. This priest had built his identity on scholarship, authority, and being obeyed. He prided himself on debate and doctrinal mastery. That a Zen teacher using plain language could draw such devotion felt like an insult. Determined to expose what he believed was shallow teaching, the priest stormed into one of Bankai's gatherings. He pushed through the seated crowd, robes flowing, his presence charged with indignation. "Hey, Zen teacher," he shouted, his tone deliberately disrespectful. "Wait, I have something to say." Bankai looked up calmly, showing no irritation. His gaze remained gentle, the same for friend or challenger alike. "These people respect you," the priest continued, "and obey whatever you say. But I do not respect you at all. Can you make me obey? Can your so-called wisdom control someone who sees through your tricks?" The room grew still. Many expected anger or a sharp rebuttal. Instead, Bankai smiled warmly. "Please come sit beside me," he said softly, "and I will show you." The priest, confident and pleased with himself, stepped forward and stood beside the master. His chest lifted with pride, ready to prove his independence. "Thank you," Bankai said gently. "It would be easier to hear one another if you stood on my left." Without thinking, the priest stepped left. "Actually," Bankai continued, "perhaps my right side would be better." Again, the priest moved, hardly noticing he was following instructions. Bankai's smile deepened. "You see," he said quietly, "you are already cooperating. You are a gentle, responsive person. Please sit and listen." The priest froze. In that instant, he realized what had occurred. He had come to assert dominance, yet had revealed his own natural willingness to respond. His challenge dissolved, not through force, but through clarity. The room remained silent, many holding back smiles. They had witnessed something subtle, not humiliation, but insight. The priest felt his anger soften, replaced by curiosity. How had this man transformed confrontation without asserting power? He sat down. As Bankai spoke, the words bypassed argument and touched the heart directly. For the first time in years, the priest listened without resistance. The Buddha taught, true obedience arises from harmony, not fear. This wisdom shows the difference between compliance and understanding. Why do we confuse authority with domination? Zen reminds us that true influence comes from knowing human nature, not overpowering it. The priest expected control, because that was the only model he knew. Instead, he encountered invitation. Reflect on your own life. Those who guided you most deeply, did they demand obedience or awaken cooperation? Force breeds resentment. Understanding invites change. In daily life, we often repeat the priest's mistake. We often enter moments of tension believing we must overcome others to obtain what we seek. We gather our reasons, strengthen our defenses, and quietly prepare for confrontation. Yet Bankai's way reveals another path entirely. What if, instead of assuming conflict, we trusted the innate wisdom already present in those before us and gently invited it to rise? Zen teacher Thich Nhat Hanh once observed that when another causes us pain, it is because they are carrying deep pain within themselves, and that pain is spilling outward. The priest's harshness was born from his own fear, from the trembling sense that his place and value were being threatened. Bankai's quiet brilliance was his ability to look beyond the sharp edges of behavior and recognize the wounded place beneath, responding not to hostility, but to suffering itself. This does not suggest surrendering our dignity or accepting harm. Bankai remained steady and clear. He did not allow himself to be pulled into argument, nor did he submit to demands for debate. Instead, he gently redirected the force of the moment, turning what could have become a struggle for dominance into an opening for insight. The Buddha taught that hatred is never ended by hatred, but only by its absence. This timeless truth applies not only to anger, but to every subtle form of resistance we carry. When resistance meets resistance, tension multiplies. When resistance meets understanding, space quietly opens. This evening, as you reflect on relationships or situations where you feel compelled to defend yourself or assert control, can you remember the gentle master who never demanded obedience yet received wholehearted cooperation? Can you explore ways of inviting another's natural wisdom rather than attempting to overpower their fear? The Buddha reminded us that the illusion of separateness is the deepest source of human suffering, while compassion is the truest form of strength. True authority does not arise from forcing compliance, but from helping others rediscover their own willingness to move together in harmony. Now we turn softly toward a story that reveals the subtle difference between wisdom itself and the words that try to contain it. This is known as the story of the pointing finger. In a quiet valley monastery, where evening mist drifted slowly among ancient pines, a beloved Zen teacher followed his daily habit of walking at dusk with his faithful dog. The animal's joy was simple and radiant, bounding ahead along the path, returning again and again with a wagging tail and bright, uncomplicated delight. One evening, the teacher invited a gifted student to join them on this familiar walk. The young man was exceptionally intelligent, his mind sharp and precise, able to cut cleanly through complex philosophical ideas. Yet this very brilliance had become his burden. The more deeply he studied the teachings, the more contradictions he uncovered. What should have brought clarity instead stirred confusion and unrest. As they walked beneath the darkening sky, the student finally spoke his unease. "Master," he said, "I am troubled by opposing teachings. Some speak of emptiness, others of Buddha nature. Some urge effort, others speak of effortless being. How can these instructions all be true?" The teacher listened quietly, with the patience born of long understanding. He knew that a keen intellect can become a snare when it tries to grasp truth as though solving a problem. Truth requires a softer kind of knowing. "You must remember," the teacher said gently, "that words are only signposts. Never allow words or symbols to block your view of truth. Come, I will show you." He called to his dog, who came running with eager devotion. Above them, the full moon hovered low, its silver glow slowly emerging as daylight surrendered to night. The teacher raised his hand and pointed directly toward the shining moon. "Fetch me the moon," he said playfully, his finger extended toward the glowing disk. The dog reacted at once, fixating entirely on the pointing finger, following its movement with absolute focus, just as he would track a thrown stick. The animal's attention clung to the finger alone, utterly unaware of the vast, luminous moon above. The teacher turned to his student with a quiet smile. "Where is my dog looking?" The student watched closely, awareness dawning within him. "He is looking at your finger," he replied. "Exactly," said the teacher. "Do not be like my dog. Do not confuse the finger with what it points to. All teachings are only guideposts. Each person must pass through the words of others to discover their own truth." The student stood silently. Something shifted deep inside him. The moon shone evenly over everything, unconcerned with whether anyone noticed it. Truth, he sensed, was like that, present, radiant, independent of explanation or analysis. The Buddha advised us not to accept anything simply because it has been spoken or written, but to observe carefully, and when something aligns with wisdom and brings benefit to all, to live it fully. This teaching spoke directly to the student's struggle. He had mistaken ideas about truth for truth itself. Here we see how intellectual understanding, though valuable, can quietly become an obstacle when relied upon alone. His mind could analyze endlessly, yet analysis cannot deliver the direct experience awakening requires. Like the dog fixed on the finger, he had become absorbed in examining concepts and missed the living reality they pointed toward. Why does this happen? Because the thinking mind understands by dividing, by comparing and categorizing. Ultimate truth moves beyond such divisions. It cannot be contained by thought any more than the moon can be held in a photograph. This realization gives rise to what Zen calls great doubt, the unsettling recognition that our usual ways of knowing are insufficient for life's deepest questions. Different teachings use different words to gesture toward the same boundless reality, like many fingers pointing to one moon from different directions. In spiritual seeking, we often gather teachings like possessions, memorizing sayings, comparing paths, collecting methods. All of this can serve us until we mistake accumulation of knowledge for transformation itself. As Zen reminds us, the finger is not the moon. This confusion appears everywhere. In relationships, we analyze instead of simply loving. In nature, we record instead of directly experiencing. The moon symbolizes our original nature, the awareness that exists before all labels and ideas. It has never been absent. It does not need to be achieved, only recognized. This does not mean abandoning study or reflection. The teacher used words himself to convey the lesson. Rather, it means holding understanding lightly, using it as a tool, not a destination. Like a ladder that helps us reach a rooftop, teachings can be set aside once they have fulfilled their purpose. Tonight, as you move through the complexity of life, can you sense the difference between pointing fingers and what they reveal? When you seek guidance, can you remember that words only gesture toward the quiet wisdom already within you? The Buddha urged diligent practice. That practice involves not only understanding, but moving beyond understanding into direct experience. Our next story gently reveals how true effort arises when we release fixed ideas about purpose. In a mountain monastery in ancient China, two devoted students, Puk and Mook, served their teacher with unwavering care. One morning, sunlight streamed softly through the monastery windows as the master called them forward. In his aged hands, he held a simple wicker basket, woven for carrying dry goods, clearly unfit for water. With eyes twinkling in quiet amusement, he spoke. "I need water," he said. "Please go to the river and bring some back using this basket." Puk and Mook exchanged uncertain glances, then bowed respectfully. They had learned to trust, even when instructions defied logic. Together, they carried the basket down the winding path to the river, where clear mountain water rushed cool and bright. They submerged the basket, and as expected, the water slipped through the woven strands, leaving nothing behind. They tried again, moving faster, changing angles, but every drop escaped. Hour after hour, they experimented, covering the basket with robes, working together in rhythm, trying every idea they could imagine. Each attempt ended the same way, with empty hands and growing weariness. Yet something within them persisted. As afternoon shadows lengthened, they returned to the monastery, their hearts heavy. "Master," Puk said softly, "we have tried everything. The basket cannot hold water." The master took the basket, running his fingers along the bamboo strips. A smile spread across his face. "Wonderful," he said. "This basket has never been so clean. Had I asked you to wash it, you would have done so quickly. But in trying to carry water, you have cleansed every surface, forced water through every crevice, and polished it completely." The Buddha taught that happiness does not depend on what we possess or who we appear to be, but on how we perceive. This story reveals the difference between performing a task and truly engaging with it. Why, we may wonder, do we so often withhold our full presence from the simplest acts? Zen teachings gently reveal how the ego quietly builds ladders of importance, deciding that some actions deserve our finest energy while others are dismissed as burdens to escape as quickly as possible. We reserve enthusiasm for pursuits that promise praise, pleasure, or progress, and treat ordinary upkeep as interruptions standing in the way of what we believe truly matters. The mind constantly judges whether something is worthy of our full attention. Cleaning feels heavy when we focus only on having a clean room. Movement becomes dull when we think only of results and measurements. Cooking turns hurried when it is seen merely as fuel preparation. In each moment, something precious is lost. The quiet fulfillment that arises from meeting a task fully, with care and presence, just as it is. The Buddha taught that right action unfolds naturally when we bring complete awareness to whatever is before us. Puk and Mook discovered this truth without intending to. Driven by their wish to fulfill their teacher's request, they moved beyond their habitual way of cleaning and entered their work with curiosity, patience, and wholehearted effort. Master Linji once said, "There is nothing special to do. Simply live plainly. Relieve yourself, wash your face, put on your clothes, eat your food. When tired, sleep." This simplicity does not point to carelessness, but to offering the same depth of presence to every act. The sacred is not hidden in rare rituals, but revealed when ordinary moments are met with uncommon attention. Imagine how daily chores might change if they were approached as quiet practice. What if washing dishes became a reflection on impermanence? What if arranging your space became a meditation on order and care? What if preparing food became an act of kindness offered gently to yourself and others? Beneath this lies a deeper pattern. When we chase outcomes directly, we often grow tense and constrained. When we serve a task or respond to a challenge, our natural abilities flow more freely. Tonight, as you meet activities your mind labels as unimportant, can you experiment with offering them the same attention you would give something precious? You may discover that presence itself determines how deeply any action can nourish the spirit. As the Buddha taught, to understand your past, observe your present condition. To understand your future, observe your present actions. Every simple task becomes a doorway into shaping both character and aliveness. Now, let us continue with a story about remaining balanced regardless of circumstance. This is the teaching of Master Hakuin and the quiet strength of, "Is that so?" Master Hakuin lived in a small village where he was widely respected for his wisdom, kindness, and integrity. For many years, he was known as a teacher who embodied the highest ideals of the path, someone believed to have moved beyond ordinary human weakness. Villagers sought his counsel, trusting both his words and the steadiness of his life. In the same village lived a young woman from a respected family. When she became pregnant outside marriage, shock rippled through the close-knit community. Her parents, overwhelmed by shame and anger, demanded to know who was responsible. At first, she remained silent, protecting the man she loved from disgrace. But as pressure mounted and fear tightened its grip, she made a desperate choice. In confusion and panic, she named the one person she believed could survive the storm, Master Hakuin. When her parents confronted him, they expected denial, outrage, or explanation. Instead, Hakuin listened quietly and responded with calm simplicity, "Is that so?" His stillness only deepened their suspicion. Surely, they thought, an innocent man would protest. Rumors spread quickly. Those who once revered him now whispered of hypocrisy. Students left. Respect vanished overnight. When the child was born, the parents brought the infant to Hakuin. "This is your responsibility," they said bitterly. They placed the baby in his arms and departed, leaving him to face consequences for something he had never done. Again, Hakuin replied softly, "Is that so?" For months, he cared for the child with gentle devotion. He fed and bathed the infant, walked through long nights of wakefulness, and offered the steady love of a true guardian. Neighbors who once supported him now passed in silence or contempt. He had lost status, livelihood, and reputation, yet his care never wavered. Meanwhile, the young woman's guilt grew unbearable. Watching the teacher suffer for her lie, while lovingly raising a child not his own, finally broke her heart open. She confessed everything to her parents, revealing the true father she had tried to protect. Horrified, her parents hurried to Hakuin, bowing deeply in shame. "Master, we have wronged you," they said. "Our daughter has spoken the truth. Please forgive us and allow us to return the child to its real family." Hakuin listened with the same calm presence he had shown from the beginning. As he gently handed the baby back, he offered the same quiet words, "Is that so?" The Buddha taught that hatred never ends hatred, but only love can dissolve it. This story reveals the strength of inner balance that does not depend on praise or blame. Why do we allow others' opinions to rule our inner world? Zen teaches that true freedom arises from a steady center that remains unmoved by honor or disgrace, fairness or injustice. Hakuin's simple phrase was not indifference. It was profound non-attachment, freedom from clinging to reputation, identity, even the demand to be seen as right. Most of us would defend ourselves fiercely against false accusation or humiliation. Yet Hakuin shows another way, meeting every condition with the same calm acceptance. This does not mean never acting or speaking, but understanding that peace need not depend on circumstances being favorable. The Buddha said, "You will not be punished for your anger. You will be punished by your anger." Hakuin avoided the extra suffering that resentment and resistance would have added. The situation was difficult, but he did not multiply the pain within himself. Look gently at your own reactions to misunderstanding or criticism. How much suffering comes from the event itself, and how much from the mind's response? Hakuin's life suggests that we hold more freedom over the second than we often realize. Tonight, as judgments or unfairness arise, can you remember his quiet, "Is that so?" Can you sense the space between what happens and how you respond? In that space, peace is not controlled by the world. The Buddha taught that peace is found within. Do not search for it outside yourself. Spiritual maturity is not measured by how gently life treats us, but by how gracefully we meet life as it is, with compassion, dignity, and calm, whether or not we are understood. Our next story reveals wisdom about the fluid nature of identity and freedom from rigid ideas of pure and impure. This is the story of the all-purpose bowl. Master Sengai lived simply, unburdened by elaborate rules or appearances. Among his few belongings was a single wooden bowl, used for many purposes throughout the day, reflecting his ease with simplicity and freedom from convention. Each morning, after attending to bodily needs, he filled the bowl with water and washed his hands mindfully, honoring cleanliness with quiet attention. Later, the same bowl held vegetables, washed and prepared for his modest meal. At mealtime, it became his rice bowl, holding nourishment with the same dignity. Day after day, season after season, the bowl shifted roles effortlessly: wash basin, preparation vessel, eating bowl, responding naturally to what the moment required, just as the master himself did. To him, this simple arrangement felt entirely natural and quietly efficient, an expression of practical wisdom that avoided accumulating what was unnecessary. Yet this unconventional habit eventually drew the attention of a visitor staying at the temple. Observing the master's daily routine with increasing unease, the guest finally felt compelled to speak, concerned about what appeared to be a serious lapse in cleanliness. "Your Reverence," the visitor said carefully, wishing to show respect, "are you certain it is appropriate to use the same bowl for washing your hands and then for serving food? Does this not seem unsanitary? Is there not a risk of contamination?" Master Sengai paused in his preparations and met the visitor's gaze. There was no trace of irritation, no defensiveness at having his habits questioned. Instead, his eyes reflected a view that moved beyond ordinary ideas of clean and unclean, proper and improper. "When I place food in it," the master replied gently, "it is the world of the rice bowl. When I wash my hands in it, it is the world of the wash bowl." He allowed a moment of silence before continuing, "To you, a wash bowl appears impure. To me, there is neither purity nor pollution." The visitor fell quiet, slowly absorbing what had been shared, sensing that something deeper had been revealed, not merely about hygiene, but about identity, function, and the mental labels through which we structure our experience. The Buddha taught that all conditioned things are impermanent and encouraged diligent awareness of this truth. This teaching speaks directly to how identity and purpose remain fluid, not fixed, and how our categories often place barriers between ourselves and direct experience. We habitually assign permanent identities to objects, people, and situations, based on temporary roles or single functions. We declare things clean or dirty, sacred or ordinary, acceptable or unacceptable, forgetting that such distinctions exist primarily within the mind, not within the things themselves. Master Sengai's bowl quietly demonstrates this understanding. The bowl itself never changed. Only its use shifted with the moment. By seeing beyond rigid categories of pure and impure, the master remained connected to the essential nature of things, free from the narrowing lens of dualistic thinking. This teaching also reveals our attachment to elaborate systems of rules and classifications that often serve habit and convention more than true necessity. We create strict boundaries about what belongs where, what may be combined, and what must remain separate. While some distinctions protect health and safety, many arise simply from conditioning rather than lived reality. Why do we feel uneasy when expected boundaries are crossed? Often, it is because our sense of order depends on predictable mental frameworks. When someone shows us that these structures are flexible, It can unsettle our idea of how the world should function. The Master's words, rice bowl world and wash bowl world, point to how meaning arises from context, not from inherent qualities. The same water may be for drinking or for cleaning. The same words may be poetry or instruction. The same act may be sacred in one moment and ordinary in the next. This story also clarifies the difference between genuine cleanliness and psychological labeling. Master Sengai was not careless. He washed both his hands and the bowl thoroughly. His teaching addressed how concepts of purity often extend far beyond practical hygiene into realms of fear and rigidity that distance us from direct engagement with life. We see similar patterns everywhere. People who need separate dishes for every purpose, workplaces that divide tools unnecessarily, communities that complicate simple tasks with layers of protocol. Zen practice nurtures what might be called functional ease, the ability to meet each situation as it is, guided by usefulness rather than fixed labels. This does not reject discernment, but invites us to question which distinctions truly serve life and which merely reinforce habit. We often assume that spiritual life requires greater separation and stricter purity. Master Sengai's way suggests the opposite, that deep understanding leads toward integration, where nothing is excluded from awareness. Purity and impurity, in this light, are often creations of the mind. When we see through these constructs, we touch a freedom that does not rely on maintaining elaborate divisions. This story also invites reflection on what we believe spiritual conduct should look like. The Master's simplicity gently challenged expectations, revealing how our ideas about holiness can sometimes obscure genuine wisdom. Tonight, as you notice the many categories your mind uses to organize experience, can you sense where these labels might be creating unnecessary separation? What would it feel like to hold them more lightly, allowing context and function to guide your actions instead of rigid assumptions? The Buddha taught that form is emptiness and emptiness is form. When we realize that our labels exist in thought rather than in things themselves, a natural flexibility emerges, a freedom to meet life directly without excess complication. Now, as our time together settles into stillness, notice how your mind feels compared to when we began. Sense the spaciousness that has opened, the quiet ease now present. This calm was not produced by effort. It was revealed by releasing the struggle to manage every thought. The Buddha compared the mind to water. When disturbed, it clouds. When still, it becomes clear. Rest now in this clarity, not empty in a barren way, but open like the sky, able to hold any weather without resistance. Each story tonight has pointed to the same gentle truth. The peace you seek was never absent. Thoughts and noise are only passing conditions, not your true nature. They move like clouds through the wide sky of awareness. Even when tomorrow brings its familiar challenges, remember what you have touched here. This quiet capacity is not rare or earned. It is as natural as breathing. You need not perfect it, only stop opposing it. Notice how effortless this feels. Thoughts may still appear, yet they no longer pull you away. They rise and fall like soft ripples on a deep, calm lake. This is what the Masters meant by an empty mind, not the absence of thought, but freedom from being ruled by it. Mental freedom does not require extraordinary effort or ideal conditions. It asks only that we recognize the stillness that has always been here, waiting beneath the surface. The peace you feel now is not fleeting. It is a glimpse of who you are when you are no longer entangled in constant commentary. May this recognition remain with you, gently guiding you back to stillness whenever life feels heavy. Sleep peacefully, and thank you for sharing this quiet journey with Silent Monk.